During World War II, very few Allied commanders attracted as much fame, controversy, and heated debate as Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery. To the British public, he was the man who had turned the tide of war at El Alamein, the general who stood unshaken against Rommel, and a national hero who gave the people of Britain confidence during the darkest days. But across the Atlantic, in the United States, Montgomery was often a far less admired figure. Many American generals considered him arrogant, inflexible, and unwilling to give proper credit to his allies. Some even privately admitted that they hated him, a strong word for an ally who was supposed to be fighting the same war. So, why exactly did Americans dislike Bernard Montgomery so much? To answer this, we need to look at his career, his personality, his style of command, and above all, his clashes with American commanders such as Dwight D. Eisenhower, Omar Bradley, and George S. Patton. Montgomery's rise to fame, Bernard Montgomery, often simply called Monty, rose to fame during the North African Campaign. In 1942, the British Army was demoralized after repeated defeats at the hands of the German Afrika Korps, led by the legendary General Erwin Rommel. When Montgomery took command of the British 8th Army, things began to change. Montgomery brought discipline, strict organization, and a sense of confidence to his men. He promised them that he would never again allow them to be defeated, and he gave clear and simple orders that inspired trust. His leadership culminated in the Battle of El Alamein in late 1942, a decisive Allied victory that forced Rommel to retreat and marked the beginning of the end for Axis forces in North Africa. This victory made Montgomery a hero in Britain. Winston Churchill praised him, the press celebrated him, and the British people felt they finally had a general who could stand up to the Germans. But while El Alamein gave Montgomery immense prestige, it also planted the seeds of tension with the Americans. Why? Because Montgomery's success made him confident, some would say overconfident, and he began to believe that his method of war was superior to everyone else's, including the Americans. Montgomery's personality, arrogance or confidence. One of the biggest reasons why Americans disliked Montgomery was his personality. Monty was known for being blunt, outspoken, and proud of his own abilities. He often gave the impression that he thought he was the smartest general in the room. To his soldiers, this confidence was inspiring. They wanted a leader who seemed certain of victory. But to his fellow commanders, especially those from another nation, it often came across as arrogance. For example, Montgomery once remarked that the American generals did not truly understand modern warfare. He criticized their aggressive, fast-paced style and argued that battles should only be fought when one had overwhelming superiority in men and resources. The Americans, by contrast, valued boldness, rapid maneuvers, and taking risks to exploit opportunities. This difference in philosophy created constant friction. Montgomery accused the Americans of being reckless, while the Americans accused him of being too cautious and slow. Clashes with Eisenhower. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme commander of Allied forces in Europe, was responsible for keeping all the Allied generals, British, American, Canadian, and others, working together. It was not an easy task, and Montgomery often made it harder. Eisenhower's leadership style was diplomatic and cooperative. He believed that unity among the Allies was more important than personal glory. Montgomery, however, believed that military operations should be run with strict authority and clear hierarchy, preferably with himself in command. Montgomery frequently criticized Eisenhower's decisions and sometimes even ignored his orders. He believed Eisenhower was too political and too willing to compromise. On one occasion, Montgomery openly said that he, not Eisenhower, should be in charge of all ground forces in Europe. To American ears, this sounded like arrogance and disrespect for their supreme commander. Eisenhower never publicly attacked Montgomery, but privately he admitted that dealing with him was one of the hardest parts of his job. Many American officers felt the same way. They respected Montgomery's military skill, but they disliked his attitude.